Our speaker today, Larry Greenfield, is a longtime GOP leader and a fellow of the Claremont Institute. He earned his BA at UC Berkeley in political science, graduating as a class speaker. While earning a law degree at the Georgetown University Law Center in Washington, D.C., he worked to obtain an arrest warrant for PLO chairman Yasser Arafat, beginning a lifetime journey of combating terrorism and tyranny. Larry enlisted and served in the Naval Intelligence Reserve and has traveled to over 80 countries and inside 8 war zones. He was publisher of the Journal of International Security Affairs and has served on the executive committee of the California Republican Party, as a founding director of the Reagan Legacy Foundation, and as a director of the Republican Jewish Coalition. Larry was originally scheduled to speak on why our Jews still liberal, and he will, but much has changed since the horrible mass murder in Orlando. Given Larry's expertise in national security, we have asked, and he has agreed, to discuss and answer our questions on how Orlando will change our lives and what we can do about it. So now I'd like to present Larry Greenfield.
Hello, fellow Republicans. Hello. Thank you, Betsy. Thank you, Diane. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Tamara. And thank all of you for your activism and leadership of the Republican Women's Federated Group. I formally, loudly, proudly endorse Steve Bozzo for State Senate. And he's a fantastic person, a fantastic candidate. I'm involved in the campaign. Please meet Susie of his staff. And please be involved in bringing a little sanity back to Sacramento and helping Republicans keep the Democrats from having a supermajority. And beside that, he's a very thoughtful person who's been dedicated to public safety and education and to leadership and to small business and to our economy and to our kids. And it's fantastic when good people step forward. So I'm delighted to share the afternoon with Steve. Today is June 17, 2016. It's the 17th, a prime number. That gives me an excuse to say a word or two about my all-time favorite American, founding father. They call him the first American, Benjamin Franklin. Now, why would the 17th be such a propitious day? Because Ben Franklin was born on January 17, 1706. He died on April 17, 1790, and he was one of 17 children. He came from Milk Street in Boston as a young apprentice and poor boy to Philadelphia, and he built his life as a printer and publisher, postmaster, Freemason, philosopher, founder of fire departments and libraries, author, inventor, invented the bifocal lens, the electricity lightning rod, the glass harmonica, the Franklin stove, oceanography techniques, and on and on. Ben Franklin was the first to recognize the wisdom of compound interest, the miracle of compound interest, He set aside a few funds in the 1700s. American school children today still receive support because of the wisdom over 300 years ago of Ben Franklin to set aside some philanthropic educational funds. Ambassador, statesman, when Ben Franklin, after the Stamp Acts, decided to endorse the American Revolution, we were on our way. That made all the difference. Drafter of the Declaration of Independence, delegate to the Constitutional Convention. In fact, in July 4th, 1776, a committee was appointed of Jefferson, Adams, and Franklin to create the motto and seal of the United States of America. The motto was, "Rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God." And the logo was proposed to be the scene from the book of Exodus, Moses leading the Israelites to the promised land away from slavery. Franklin believed in the 13 virtues that he outlined in his autobiography: temperance, silence, order, resolution, frugality, industry, sincerity, justice, moderation, cleanliness, tranquility, chastity, and humility. 3 quotes from the great Ben Franklin. Early to bed, early to rise, makes a man or woman healthy, wealthy, and wise. Failing to prepare is preparing to fail. And young Miss Alexander, where liberty is, there is my country. Doesn't get more simple than that. The spirit of the founders, patriots, self-reliant, courageous, promoting religious liberty and freedom of conscience and the defense thereof, naturally led our founders to be skeptical and severely concerned about what was happening across the globe, across the oceans, the Islamic Barbary pirates who kidnapped, held for ransom, traders on the high seas. In 1804, the U.S. Navy launched its first naval battles to defend the trade routes and freedom of the high seas and face off against terrorism off the Libyan coast. The shores of Tripoli were and remain a source of national and international security concern to Americans. Not much has changed 212 years later. The first jihad was Muhammad's establishment of and expansion of Islam throughout all of Arabia, conquered lands at the point of the sword in the 7th and 8th centuries. The second jihad was the Muslim thrust into Europe, finally halted on September 11th, 1683, in the battle outside of Vienna. We are living in the time of the third jihad, the third dedicated effort by Islamists to conquer the West and extend their rule over all lands not currently ruled by, touched by Islam. They say so. They call their project a jihad, a holy war. Any land that was ever touched by or ruled by Muslims, they believe, must be under Muslim rule. Hence the vicious assaults on Israel, or still Spain, formerly Andalusia, and Europe. They literally believe they are recapturing Muslim lands. 9/11 Paris, Brussels, San Bernardino, Orlando, Fort Hood, Chattanooga, Boston. I think the American people and Western civilization is getting the message they are still at war with us. They formally declared war on us in 1998. Bin Laden's document called for war and jihad against Christians and Jews, or Zionists. Our question is, what shall be, what has been, the response of the West? What is our understanding of the enemy? What is our path of self-education? What is our realism about this threat? What is honest discussion about it in public affairs? And do our leaders lead appropriately in response to this third jihad? None of which we've seen from the White House has given us confidence as an American people, and polls show that the grading of the foreign policy and national security agenda of the Obama administration remains very low. In fact, the president came out early in his administration and said, quote, Muslims were integral to the founding of the United States. Do you remember that? That's not very true, because the settlers to our new shores were religious Christians seeking religious liberty. And 150 years or so later, at the founding of our republic, our constitutional republic, there were no Muslim signers of our Declaration and our Constitution. Muslims were anticipated under theories of religious freedom and no religious test for office to be equal citizens of the United States, but they were not integral to the founding of the United States. The founding of the United States was built on a Judeo-Christian civilization, which had graduated out of a theocratic worldview, had made peace with modernity, had gone through enlightenment, had said, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, and found a place for religion in a multi-faceted society. That was the genius of Christians and Jews and Westerners, that they were not rooted in a Sharia law idea of a religious test. They believed in separation of church and state. Even while being religious founders, they believed in a pluralistic America, built on the idea of equality. Liberty was built on the idea of equality. My God is not greater than or lesser than your God. We are equal Americans. Correct?
Correct.
That is not the theme to this day in the 21st century in all the countries ruled by Muslims. They do not establish pluralistic democracies. You may not create a synagogue or a church in Saudi Arabia. That tells us what we need to know when we compare our society versus their society. The language by the president and his team has been awful regarding truth-telling. After Fort Hood, a jihadist inspired by jihadi text and literature and calls to massacre the infidel, the president called it workplace violence, and said that we must conduct overseas contingency operations against man-caused disasters. And that those who tell the truth about Islam are Islamophobic. Churchill did not believe this. Churchill wrote deeply scholarly about Mohammedism, as he called it. Instead, we have the idea that Islam is a religion of peace. Some Muslims are peaceful, and some aren't. In fact, when we say the term radical Islam, or jihad, or jihadism, or extremist Islam, we are actually purposely saying we're not cataloging all Muslims as jihadists, or radicals, or extremists. We agree our best allies are and can be and should be moderate Muslims, westernized Muslims, American Muslims, who themselves proclaim themselves to be victims of radical Islam. This Republican women's group, I'm sure, knows the work of Ayan Hirsi Ali and Wafa Sultan and Noni Darwish and those women who themselves are the leaders of response to the brutalization of women under Islamic Sharia law. And so we ask the President and others in the political dialogue to spend a little more time teaching the American people, revealing to the American people their understanding of such terms as Sharia, Islamic law, no separation of mosque and state, no accommodation to modernity, jihad, which is the term used by holy warriors. It also can mean personal struggle, we get it, but please don't deceive us. We're not talking about the spiritual path of an individual Muslim for whom we have goodwill and root. We're talking about holy warriors blowing up things and people. Takfir, do you know that expression? Excommunication of those who don't obey strict observance to Islamic faith. Hudna, do you know that word? Hudna is a temporary ceasefire, a military doctrine or strategy. We will take what we can get now with a temporary agreement, but just like in the Quran, it can be abrogated later, and then we'll move on for further military conquest. Taqiyya. Taqiyya means deception. You are authorized to lie to get out of your enemy what you can by deceiving him. Scholarly consensus. The idea that they don't work out in Talmudic fashion over long centuries of tradition debate. What we mean by the text and tradition of the Torah or the Old or New Testament. We don't accommodate modernity. Scholarly consensus meant that the scholars of Islam set in stone the interpretation of Islam, and guess what? It hasn't changed. There's no great scholarship in Islam today offering reformist ideas and interpretations. Read the faith leaders of Islam today from Egypt, Al-Azhar University, or from Saudi Arabia, or in Iran, and you do not find a modernist interpretation. The theory of abrogation means that whatever came last in the Quran had precedence over everything that came before it. Unfortunately, now locked in stone are the worst phrases of the Quran about there lies behind the rock the infidel, the kafir, the ape. Go kill him. The worst phrases in chapter 9 are the dominant phrases in, for example, the Palestinian National Covenant, the document that founded the Palestinian Authority, and before that the PLO of Yasser Arafat. Unfortunately, the preeminent phrases dominating intellectual circles and military doctrine in Islam today are the worst phrases, are the modern phrases, are the abrogating phrases. And finally, caliphate. Whether it's the Islamic Republic of Iran or the Islamic State in Syria and Iraq, ISIS. The belief that all of the Ummah, all of the globe, must come under the rule of the Caliphate. Why an attack on a gay nightclub? Why the mistreatment of women? Why this sort of perverted? You saw it in the caves of Afghanistan, the men holding hands together and growing their fingernails really long. Why this sort of sexual politics that dominates a lot of the Arab world? Why this unbelievable treatment of women? What is this fear? Why little girls in Afghanistan were kept for so long before liberation, Operation Enduring Freedom? Why they couldn't go to school? Why the beating up right at the shooting of that Malala in Pakistan? Why the rape and the kidnap and the torture in ISIS-held territory? right, of the Kurdish girls and the Yazidis? Why the Boko Haram Muslim terrorists? And remember the campaign for the girls, bring back our girls? What is going on with the sexual politics in their country? It is an honor-shame society. It is an honor-shame dynamic. The men are deeply uncomfortable with who they are in a patriarchal society. They are threatened by and cannot accept the equal rights and the fellow leadership and the humanity of women. In Islam today, you may still marry 4 wives. A woman's testimony is worth half that of a man. Women cannot drive in Saudi Arabia, and on and on and on. It's the opposite, yes, and the Clintons did indeed gladly accept donations from all of these countries, and she's supposed to be the big feminist. So, Orlando is just the latest in, unfortunately, a sad, long line of attack on the Kafir, the infidel, the Westerner, the Christian, the Jew, and even many of their own of the Muslim faith. And how do different communities respond to all this? How does the left respond to these truth-telling, to this descriptive analysis of what's going on? How does the Jewish community, as an example of a traditionally liberal-minded political community in the United States, seek to, if it does seek to, evolve and grow and modernize and accommodate all of this reality? And that's what I'd like to spend a little bit of time on. I would like to argue today that there are 3 reasons why American Jewry, for the most part, with some improvement on the margins, remains liberal Democrats in an era clearly where you would think they would be thinking a second time and identifying much more warmly with the part of the political spectrum which likes them, adores them, befriends them, supports them, endorses them, cares for them, and is allied with them, and not so much cocooning with a lot of the political spectrum which has not been so nice to Jews locally and internationally. Let's take one step back. The Jewish story is the most interesting one. This tiny people seems to have survived and overcome, when nobody else did, threat and assault and humiliation and beating from Babylonians and Egyptians and Assyrians and Romans and Nazis and communists and Arabs, and it goes on and on and on. And to this day, there remains now there has grown up now a renewed negative, hostile, anti-Semitic, anti-Zionist, and if you only pick out one country in the world to pick on, then they might say there might be a little bit of anti-Jewish sentiment involved if the only country in the world at the UN that they beat up on every day is not the human rights abuses in Syria or in Africa. If the one country they pass resolution after resolution and have Palestinian Day and anti-Israel Day is Israel, there might be a little bit of anti-Semitism involved. If the only state in the world is the 6 million Jewish state, then maybe there's a little anti-Jewish sentiment. Is that fair? As Woody Allen or somebody else once said, even paranoids actually do have their enemies. And yet this miraculous people has hung in there, stayed creative, brought many gifts to the world, made a contribution in every society it's been in, did reach political liberty in theory in Europe, in France, in Britain. Ultimately, though, Dreyfus discovered in the late 1800s that anti-Semitism was a virus within Europe that was so deep that the Jews were going to need and require and deserved the restoration of their ancient homeland, a return to their own state with their own army to defend themselves and the opportunity to be a light unto the nations and defend themselves as a modern sovereign nation. That there should be one place on the world stage where the Jews also had self-determination, had their own flag, their own army, and their own country to defend. And so in 48, the rebirth of the Third Jewish Commonwealth, the prior two had been destroyed, of course, a renewed Jewish state. Also attacked from all sides, repeatedly, war after war after war, economic boycott after economic boycott, negative press, hostility. To this day now, the energies on American college campuses in our free, beloved land is deeply focused on picking on Israel, a tiny country which has done what? Invited in refugees from all over the world, from Europe and from the Arab lands, built green out of the desert, created the chips in our cell phones, come up with medical and genius inventions. You can take a pill, which is a camera, and helps do the diagnosis internally so they don't have to, have laparoscopic or other surgery. The gifts of the Jews and of Israel just keep flowing and flowing and flowing. The number 2 country in the world to produce NASDAQ innovative companies is tiny Israel, 6 million Jews. That same number, 6 million. Sociologically, the Jews, like other immigrant groups, hooked up with the Democratic Party. In the early 1900s, the Democratic Party was eager to bring in poor working masses that worked in sweatshops and joined labor unions and built the Tammany Hall and other Democratic Party coalitions. Catholics, Jews, immigrants. Many Jews are still voting for that party. They're still voting for FDR for the 23rd consecutive term. They don't want to offend the memory of Grandma and Grandpa, Bubba and Zeta. Oh, we were all Democrats. We all remember the bad times in Tsarist Russia. We all know the Democrats are the party of immigrants and the working class. We're not going to abandon that. Yes, the heartstrings and the violin, etc. Not to mention that, by poll after poll, by 50 points, Republicans of the party that stand by the Jewish state promote economic policies that have been good to immigrant groups like the Jews. What group should be more interested in dynamic free market capitalism? What group did better, starting poor, to educate its young and to join the workforce and to rise up the American mobility ladder? And on the question of national security in Israel, whether we should stand by Israel under assault from mortars, rockets, and missiles from Israel's southern border in northern Gaza, or stand by Israel's defense and right to defend itself from the rockets that rain down from Hezbollah on Israel's northern border in southern Lebanon, or the right of Israel to ask that the U.S. Embassy be in Jerusalem, like we put our embassy all over the world in the capital of the country hosting us. On issue after issue, by 50 points, Republicans stand by Jews, Judaism, Israel, more than Democrats do. Democrats are ambiguous at best now about Israel. Witness the 2012 Democratic Party convention when they booed the LA mayor, chairman that day of the convention floor, over standing by Israel. That's not the instinct of activists in the Democratic Party. Sociological. Jews still voting Democrats for ancient sociological political reasons, which I think should fade and have faded in terms of their merit. B. Ideological. What is the brand of the Democrats politically? They are the party that cares. They're the party that cares about the widow, the poor, the orphan. Jews are a very religious people. Their religion for many of them is no longer Judaism. It's liberalism. Norman Mahoritz wrote the definitive book, The Torah of Liberalism. The religion, the belief system, the important call of liberalism. No longer the Torah of Judaism, to pay attention to read, to be fidelis to, but liberalism. Synagogues throughout America are the Democratic Party with bagels. What is preached from the pulpit is only a left-wing interpretation with the thumb on the scale of all the interesting debates, political, economic, sociological, that go on in any contemporary society. Capital punishment is the only law in all 5 books of the Old Testament. Genesis 9:6, very early in the good book, whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed. God will determine your place in heaven or hell. Here on earth, our work is to show the price you pay for the unlawful taking of innocent human life. Capital punishment. Anticipated by our text, our tradition, and by the way, the American founders, and all the state constitutions. But go to any synagogue or any left-wing church, and the left, religious left, has reinterpreted now capital punishment as cruel and unusual punishment. I think it's cruel to keep a murderer alive, where he may kill the guard, or order the murder of the witnesses, or cost taxpayers their daily bread, or continue to torture the families of beloved victims. Whether it's on the merits and DNA, or deterrence, or questions of justice and morality, I'm happy to have that debate, and I do so, about capital punishment and the death penalty, and witnesses and DNA, and all the things we can talk about. But to get up on stage as many left-wing social worker Jews who become rabbis through the seminaries, that's who becomes rabbis. They start in kindergarten, they work their way through the left-wing seminaries of college campuses into the left-wing seminaries of American religious life, and then they take over the reform and the conservative movements, and they put their thumb on the scale. You hear a lot of arguments rooted in the tradition for capitalism, for the beauty of abundance, for the only path to lift people out of poverty, and to care for the widow, the poor, the orphan. The Republican brand is what works to care for people. We need to translate the sentiment and the sentimentality of we care into the spirit of what works. Ask Chicago, Detroit, and a small suburb of Ventura County called Los Angeles, California, if Democratic Party, one-party rule is working. There's 70,000 students or so in LA County USD school district. There's 700,000 students, 70,000 faculty and staff. Half the kids don't graduate. Is it working? And the K-12 budget, Senator to be, I think half of the California budget goes to K-12. Are we getting our money's worth? No. Jews are a people about educating the next generation. You think they have some standards and some questions about how they're throwing money at K-12 education in this state. We rank 48th, I think, in math and reading, 4th grade and 8th grade. California ranks at the bottom. We're the highest tax state, the most regulated state. On so many levels, we have fallen way behind as a one-party state. No competition, it's a disaster.
Most of our high-tech industries in the life.
The sociology of Jews remains very left-wing. The sociology remains very left-wing. The ideology remains very left-wing. And unfortunately, the theology, the third reason Jews remain very liberal. The theology remains very left-wing. And by that I mean fear of the cross. Many Jewish liberals have associated the Republican Party with Christendom and even unfairly attached to Christianity, to the cross, a deep antipathy, understandable, for what happened 1,800 years ago and more in Europe. The church asserted At times, the truth and the merit of the arrival of the Lord, of the coming of the Messiah, the truth of that, with the suffering of those who did not accept the Messiah. The Jews did not accept Jesus as Lord. And so their suffering, sometimes enforced by the church or the state, proved the merit of Jesus as Lord. That is supersessionism. That is the replacement theology of succeeding the Jews and their special relationship with God with the Christian world and their special relationship. The church replaced the Jews under supersessionist theory, replacement theology. So, many were very hostile to Jews with an anti-Semitic or an anti-Jewish or an anti-Christ killer and all the interpretations of that theory. But that wasn't the theory of the United States, because I studied 400 years of restorationism. The idea deep in the bones of the American people that the Jews are worthy as our brothers and merit the return to their ancient homeland. The settlers of our new world in the 1600s gave themselves the names out of the Bible and believed they were founding a new Zion, and that they too were escaping from slavery in Egypt. They deeply identified with the story and the text of the Torah and the Old Testament. They lived the Old Testament. The Great Awakening, all the pastors and preachers of the early days of colonial America believed in the righteousness of the story of the Bible. And our founders were a variety of religious Christians named Benjamin Franklin. And the one who said that we are, in fact, Americans and almost chosen people, was his phrase, was the final founding father, Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln believed that mystic cords connected the American people to their founding. Mystic cords connected the American people to their founding. And through their founding to the great civilization upon which it was all built. The Judeo-Christian civilization. Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln. Our second Abraham. Abraham Lincoln read 3 books as a boy. By a fireplace. Late at night, after a full day of working in the field as a farmer, he was very big and athletic. He got all the responsibilities and all the hard work. And he taught himself to read and to think. Reading Aesop's Fables, George Washington's biography, and the King James Bible. Abraham Lincoln built our party from the Liberty Party. Jews were not identified in particular with either political party. At the founding of our republic, Chaim Solomon was the great financier of our revolution and died penniless, a Jewish American. At the time of Abraham Lincoln, there were some Jewish peddlers who ran into some trouble during the Civil War. They were arrested under a special order from General Grant. They went and knocked on the White House door, and they were brought to the president. And he said, "May the stock of the children of Abraham be protected." The same words exactly as our greatest president, our first president, first in war, first in peace, first in the hearts of his countrymen, George Washington, who became the all-time iconic figure of our nation, for whom is named our capital, because of his virtue and republicanism. George Washington's greatness was, yes, he was big and athletic. He felt that, and he wasn't particularly scholarly in school, but he was very wise. But what was the real reason that this Revolutionary War hero did win every battle in his military career? What was the real reason that the American public loved and loves George Washington so much? because he was a virtuous man. That is what he brought to our republic, the idea of virtue. When he left the battlefield, he chose not to go into public life. And the King of England said if he chooses to go back to be a farmer and businessman, he'll be the greatest man who ever lived, instead of grabbing all the glory and kingship for himself. They dragged him to the Constitutional Convention. They made him president of the Constitutional Convention. Then they made him our first president. And he still said after the second term, I return power to the people. Washington went and visited Rhode Island, which had held out for voting for the Constitution. And when they finally did ratify it, he said, the reward shall be a visit by me as president with my administration to say thank you, brothers of Rhode Island. You are unified in the United States of America today. Always a gesture of graciousness and inclusion and leadership and gifts to the other, gifts to the other. And he visited the little synagogue, the tiny little synagogue in Rhode Island. And he said, you should be safe like all in this land, each under his own fig tree. And we will give to bigotry no sanction. There shall be no bigotry against Muslims in this land. But there should be truth-telling about the anti-Muslim pluralist idea, the anti-Muslim women, the anti-girls in Africa, the anti-sex slaves in Iraq and Kurdistan and Syria, the blowers up of pizza parlors in Israel, or Charlie Hebdo in France, or San Bernardino, nice people who had befriended the terrorists, right? Have they not befriended him? So we are at war on two fronts, I conclude. We are at war with radical Islam as Americans and Westerners and as Jews and as Christians. And we are at war with ancient political fidelity, which is simply afraid of the cross, afraid of saying, oh, Republicans might have a good idea, they might be a little better on national security, they might actually have more ideas about growing the economy. I'm afraid to leave the bosom and the protection of voting the same way Grandma and Grandpa Bubba and Zeta did 100 years ago. It's fear. Politics is about emotion. Economy is about emotion. Investing is about emotion. Investing yourself, your money, your time, your heart, your mind, your vote. Let us not be afraid. As Sharansky wrote, the great hero of liberation of Jews from the Soviet Union, we should follow the text one last time because it says, fear no evil. Thank you so much. I'll be happy to answer some questions. Thank you so much. I'm happy to answer some questions.
Larry, in addition to what you said, which I totally agree with, do you not believe that the liberal media has done an amazing job of villainizing the Republican Party and conservatives and started at a point where now it's taking itself to fruition so that people that were growing up in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s are all now absolutely, what's the word?
Liberalized.
Well, they're indoctrinated.
Yes.
So I think we're fighting that.
The question was, has the media, and I would add, and I know you would agree, academia and Hollywood,
Right.
journalists, the preachers, the clergy, Jewish, Christian, and otherwise, religious leaders, some business leaders who are crony capitalists in cahoots with Democrats, try to get your real estate project done in any urban city in America without at least having a relationship with Democrats, probably to include writing checks to their campaigns. Crony capitalism. Washington, D.C. has 6 or 8 of the wealthiest 10 counties in the country. How's that possible? It's not that great of weather in Washington, D.C. Right? So indoctrination, yes, has been a strategy by the left If you read real scholarship about the left from David Horowitz and others, they'll tell you that communists and just radicals, I don't have to use that word if people get uncomfortable with it, but very dedicated leftists in the 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s had a game plan. We will establish ourselves on the beachheads of academia. This is very important. This is the United States of America, land of the free and home of the brave. Still produces the most scholarship, the best universities, the most innovation, the best minds, the best creativity on the planet. And 90+% of the professors of America are on one side of the political aisle and purposely choose to cocoon themselves into safe spaces and not engage, which you think they would love to for the next 40 years of their academic life, views they don't agree with. They're that bullied and fearful, they only hire their fellow travelers, and they only preach and teach to the youngsters who are intimidated and don't know as much. One worldview, not letting them make up their own minds. Private schools, public schools, you're right. They create second gods. I love the environment. I don't know anybody who doesn't in California, the Golden State. But those kids were driven nuts in 3rd grade and 8th grade about the catastrophe of global warming and we're all going to die, etc. False gods, indoctrination, bullying, unfairness, intellectual dishonesty. And I'm deeply concerned about our beloved country because if you look at any powerful leadership group, where are people turning? They're deeply distrustful of authority right now. And there's very little accountability. I asked rabbis, will you have me come and speak and we'll have a dialogue? It'll be very polite. We'll talk about the issues of the day. No, I don't know about that. Why do they want to have a dialogue and debate? Some do, and they're very gracious, and I treat them with great respect when they do. Professors don't want to debate and dialogue, they want to bully. The left is very passionate. I think they're more dedicated, right, and more focused. We're busy with our lives. We care about our families and the economy, and they're focused on their political agenda. And I know why. That's their God. If you're not particularly religiously observant, and the left is not particularly religiously observant, you drop God. And for example, in Europe, they drop God. Churches are empty throughout Europe. There are more Muslims than Christians in Italy. And all those churches sit empty. The #1 name in London is Muhammad, a baby's born. Why does this happen? Because they drop God and they drop nationalism. They drop nationalism. The Brexit vote is a question of sovereignty and nationalism. I'm not going to tell them how to vote. The president decided to tell them how to vote. They'll probably vote the other way. The left has made a God out of their political passions and agenda, which is really deep down bringing heaven to earth. It's their own spiritual path. The left is very religious, but their God is not the God of the Torah, the God of Western civilization. It's the gods of equality, the gods of bringing heaven onto earth now. The God of equality is very powerful. Our passion mostly is liberty. Let freedom ring with liberty and justice for all, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, the Statue of Liberty, the Liberty Bell. That is an essential American idea, is freedom. Within that freedom, let 1,000 flowers bloom. We'll compete. We don't have to win every election. Let's win a few. It would be nice. They don't really want that. They want control. Obamacare was about control. Progressive, bureaucratic, administrative state is about control. They know best. That's what the elitism is about. That's why the president got so riled up, that he was there challenged about how he talks about the threat to the American people. Much angrier at us challenging him than about the terrorists who kill people. So yes, indoctrination and control is the spirit of the left. One or two more? Yes?
I'm new here, but I just want to say that I've had a lot of Christian friends tell me that complacency is what's killing this nation. This room should be packed because our country's in trouble. And we've got the RNC kind of wanting to back Donald Trump and not back him. We might not like everything he says, but he is standing up for our freedom. He does want to ban the influx of people we don't know who they are. and that they come from countries that want to kill us. And everybody in this room should be telling their friends and just encouraging them, don't abandon the Republican Party and the nominee that's got a lot of votes, because if we don't put Donald Trump in the office, Hillary's the other choice. And someone else here told me who you want a criminal in office who's already proven that she doesn't care about this country, she cares about the Saudi money that she gets. We have to do something. It's complacency.
Thank you,
People
Drew.
saying let someone else do it.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you so much for your comments. I don't have much to add. Yes, Carrie.
Based on what you're saying right now, what would you say our first step?
That's such a nice question, Carrie. So, by the way, hopefully I said it with respect for Jewish tradition and history and needs and gifts. My frustration is at ideas, not at people, but as an example of how the Republicans face segments of our political community that are in lockstep in big numbers with the Democrats. I used the Jewish vote as an example, but we could talk about the Asian vote. The Jewish vote is essentially 70% Democrat. It had been worse, it had been 90% Democrat. We've moved the ball a little bit, and it helps that Israelis who are here now, and former Iranian citizens, Persians, and Russians, and the Orthodox, who, by the way, I exclude from my remarks because the Orthodox are Republicans. Because they're religiously faithful, they're Zionist and pro-Israel, they're lovers of America, they're generally more small business capitalists, so they're on the Republican side. But the Asian community is also 73% Democrat. I think it's mostly because they're urban. They're not particularly left-wing, Asian Americans, but they are involved in urban life. The people they meet at their Rotary Club or their real estate seminar or their kids' party are the local Democratic officials. So that's who they're mingling with. Asians live in urban America for the most part. They're meeting Democrats. They become Democrat. Oh, we all vote Democrat? You're a registered Democrat? Okay. They're not particularly left-wing, ideologically. So, I use the Jewish community, the Jewish vote, as an example of where we need outreach. I think we are outreaching. Frankly, Christians cannot be more good-natured. I'm surprised that there's no backlash. We're so loyal to Jewish Americans, we're so supportive. Muslims, some, may want to kill us. Christians want to marry us. Or save us, which is fine by me. You want to save me? That's a very nice gesture on your part. I don't consider that an assault, by the way. I'm not afraid. There's a brotherhood there. I will bless those that bless you and curse those that curse you, it says in Genesis 12:3. When I've been lucky enough to go to church on a Sunday, and I used to say, thank you for standing by Israel. And they said, you don't have to thank us. We're doing it for reasons far beyond political calculation or even being your buddy. This is what we're told in our Bible. That's a pretty good rock on which to stand.
So where do we start?
We start by communicating, seeing people where they are. The Hispanic vote, the Asian vote, the Jewish vote, and I can do a better job too. We just got to show up, look people in the eye and tell them we want their vote. And see them where they are. And be unafraid. I don't think people like fearful people. They smell a mile away. Hispanic Americans, Latino Americans, Mexican Americans, Asian Americans, Black Americans, we think capitalism is a better solution than socialism, and we're proud to say so. We think there'll be better jobs for your kids and grandkids with a growing economy. Economic growth needs to be what we're all about over the next 4 years, not redistribution. I don't think we should punish and penalize successful people. They will invest money and create new jobs. Not that complicated. Do you want to grow, or do you want California to shrivel up like a prune from the Central Valley? Money is leaving, jobs are leaving, industries are leaving. Where are your kids going to work? Do you want a better life? Do you want your kids to have a better life? I think democratic capitalism has proved itself. Shall we look at East Germany versus West Germany? Shall we look, the satellites can take pictures of Korea, the peninsula. North Korea is dark, South Korea is all lit up. Not too complicated. How about Cuba, as JFK would put it, versus Miami Beach? What works? The Republican brand, what works? Should we have a smile on our face when we do it? Yes. Should we listen to them where they are? Yes. Hispanic Americans are good Americans. They serve in the military. They raise their kids. They're not left-wing. They work hard. I've been around a long time in Southern California. I have universally good relationship with the Hispanic Americans. They're not offended when we say we should have border security. America has nothing to apologize for. We bring in more illegal immigrants than all the rest of the world combined. Let's say so. And on issue after issue, unapologetic. I happen not to be a social justice warrior. I don't happen to get involved in a lot of social issues. I don't really care for the debate that we all can have in our own minds, much less with each other, around the Passover table about social issues. I care about the economy and national security. There's only so much the brain can do to try to become expert on and try to lead and model and teach others, okay? I don't hold myself as any kind of pastor in chief or anything. I'm a very humble guy regarding personal life. I don't get in people's face, okay? I'm a classic California Republican. Okay, I have my own personal ideas about virtue. I win arguments on economy and economic growth and on security. That's it. I win those debates. Small groups and big groups, I win those debates. That's enough for me. And I try to find one issue where a liberal Democrat, Jewish or otherwise, will say, yeah, you make a point there. That's the door opener. That's all I need. Okay, would you read this website? Would you come here? Would you go to this speaker? Steve Fazio is running for state senate. Good guy, Republican, helped with public safety for 30 years on the police, worked in small business. Oh, that sounds like a decent guy. I got Democrats telling me, okay, you're telling me he's a good guy, moderate guy, good guy, Republican guy, got to help with Sacramento, cutting taxes to create growth. Wow, there's a win. And yes, they do brand us awful. And I meet Republicans who are not awful. Some of my best friends are Republicans. We just have to, I guess, show up and be good people with smiles on our face. That's all I can do. Yeah.
I have been criticized by people in my family and some of my friends who say, do you have to talk about politics all the time? And my answer is yes, because our lives are so intertwined with politics. You cannot divorce yourself from it. My premise about a lot of these Democrats, they are, in my book, Democrats by habit. The grandpa, the grandma, the union, the dad, this is their habit. And they have not been taught by us Republicans, and we haven't done a good job of saying what Republicanism means opportunity. We need, every time we go someplace, wherever I am, and especially young people, I say, are you planning to vote? And what do you know about the candidates? And somebody, do you have to do that all the time? Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
High praise to you. That is beautiful. If you get the word opportunity out to anybody who wants to participate in having a family, in caring for their beloved puppy or cat, right? And you talk about opportunity, you are on the right side, the winning side of the issue. Yeah, one or two more. Yeah.
I just wanted to say on it that I'm surprised that the Democrats don't seem to read any books or listen to any talk show, or they don't know anything that's going on. And when you ask them something or you want to bring up a topic, then they don't, oh, we don't care, just a big foot hill, or like that other guy. And it's just, they don't seem too bright. So that's my first statement. Second one, did you read the book? Do you have a book you can buy?
Oh, how nice of you. I am writing, so her comments was that Democrats don't seem, in her experience, to be reading as much. And it's focused on detail and argument and policy and analysis. And then she said, am I writing a book that Democrats won't read? I am actually. I'm writing a book about liberty. It's going to be a long project, and I'll be back when I have it. Yeah. Thank you, Karen. Yes.
It's not a question, it's just a comment.
Yes.
Roughly 70% of Jewish people who are Democrats, most of them great incident, but people, Jewish people who immigrated from the Soviet Union and other countries, 99%.
Yes, I agree with your comment that the German and Russian immigrants, Jewish, who came in the 1800s and early 1900s, built their coalition. They cocooned themselves, not only for whom they're voting, but with whom they're voting. They wanted to be in a coalition with other minorities as they saw it. Fear of the majority culture, fear of the man, fear of the cross, fear of Republicans. Get it? They were safer, they thought, voting alongside Black Americans or other Chinese Americans in democratic coalition politics, identity politics, identity politics. And she's pointing out that more recent immigrants are aware of what communism is, what Islamic Republic of Iran is, what tyranny is, what socialism causes. And you ask any Jewish or other immigrant from the former Soviet Union about economics, and they're passionate Republicans and free marketeers, and they know what a disaster, how quickly it can fall apart in free market society. So I totally agree with your comment. Let's take one or two more, Diane.
Thank you for giving us a lot of ammunition for letters to the editor.
Thank you. Good. That's nice of you. Thank you for that. You bet. Well, I think letters to the editor matter. I think calls to talk show matter. I got a project for everybody. You ready?
Yeah.
Carrie is running for senator, correct? Steve Fazio is running for state senate, correct? How about if everybody commits between now and election day in November to call radio talk shows and gently, appropriately, during the conversation when you're on air saying, you know, I'm talking about California, there's a fabulous candidate running for office in LA or in Ventura County, and just mention their name. Go ahead.
You know something, and I realize I don't mean to interrupt.
Not at all.
But basically, that's why the Democrats did win the 2008 election. They did not do it with the traditional radio, okay? They did it with all the new social media. And that's what we have to get with stuff like today, this recording. And we have to look at that 21st century.
Yes, sir. Blogging, Facebook, Instagram, texting, telling your friends, Twitter. I happen to think that the people who listen to political talk radio tend to be very high voting cool people. Isn't that probably true? Okay, everybody should know how to say Carrie and Steve and get their name on the radio and call. And next thing you know, the hosts are going to go, I get these calls every now and then, maybe we should have them on. What's happening? There's a revolution going on. Put it very positively. You know, my neighbors and I are all getting excited about Fazio for Senate. This is a real guy. And next thing you know, it becomes a buzz. Whatever we can do, but I think our communication, I'm agreeing with everybody, is very important. So I want to leave it there. Have a wonderful weekend. Thank you, Republicans.